All right, we've made it to YouTube. I was searching for the word. We are ready to go when you are.
Great. Good evening and welcome to the February 8th, 2023 Henrietta Town Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Councilmember Page,
Here.
Councilmember Belanca,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with a silent prayer followed by a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I move to approve the minutes of the preceding meeting of January 18th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. First up, we have a presentation on increasing equitable and affordable housing in Henrietta by Benita, a senior at Mercy High School. Is Benita here? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Benita Koirala. My family and I came to America in 2008. We've been residents of Henrietta for 8 years. We moved here in 2015, leaving our apartment in the city for an affordable suburban family home. This home was our first taste of the American dream. Henrietta was welcoming from the very start. My family and I loved it. So much so that my parents convinced my aunt and uncle to move in a mere 5 minutes away. One of the main reasons we moved to Henrietta was because of my sister, who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. My parents knew she would have more opportunities and access to educational resources in the suburbs. Today, my sister goes to Leary Elementary School and is best friends with her bus driver. She absolutely loves learning. She also loves playing outside with our neighbors' kids and can often be found racing them along the cul-de-sac. All of the support my family and sister receive truly shows the strong community in Henrietta and this town's willingness to embrace others. My favorite part of Henrietta is the Veterans Memorial Park, which I frequently walk to, often stopping by the public library to check out a book to read or going into Wegmans to grab a snack before finding a shady tree to sit against. My love for Henrietta is what spurred me to focus on it for my senior capstone project. Having so many incredible people, places, and resources to reach out to is what makes Henrietta so special to me. These are things I think everyone should have access to. I wanted to use my senior capstone to learn about why there are not more people like me living in Henrietta. Through my research, I learned that Henrietta's population is 74% white, and the median household income is $77,000. This is starkly different to the city of Rochester's 45% white population and median household income of $40,000. There's a similar trend across all the suburbs in which the white population is the majority and the median household income is substantially higher than Rochester's. And because of this, Rochester is continually ranked as one of the nation's most highly segregated cities. According to the 2021 bipartisan Monroe County report of the Commission on Racial and Structural Equity, there is a clear systemic issue surrounding race and income that is sustained through the lack of housing opportunities suburbs offer to individuals with lower incomes. I want Henrietta to be different. I want more families to experience the wonderful things Henrietta has to offer. I want Henrietta to be a place that welcomes diverse individuals. This can only be achieved by creating more affordable housing opportunities in Henrietta. While there are some affordable housing options available, they are mainly restricted to seniors. This is due to past discrimination like redlining and current zoning regulations that limit density and make it harder to build affordable housing. This includes restrictions against accessory dwelling units or ADUs. I would like Henrietta to reconsider these regulations to allow for more multifamily housing through mixed residential districts and the development of vacant and underutilized property. Changing current zoning regulations will make it possible for Henrietta to introduce mixed income communities. Another issue Henrietta faces is its lack of public transportation. In my family of 6, my dad is the only adult who can drive. There have been many times in which an accessible public transportation system would have helped my family out greatly. I know we are not the only ones. Introducing an improved public transport system with more routes would make Henrietta a viable option for many families who cannot afford other modes of transportation. Having affordable housing and public transport go hand in hand in making areas accessible and sustainable for future generations. However, I understand that there are a few real estate companies who are willing to build lower priced homes. To increase this market, Henrietta can introduce incentive zoning for companies who want to build affordable housing. Additionally, many of the affordable options Henrietta does offer are not well maintained. There should be more regulations and motivation to maintain lower income rental properties. Reconsidering current zoning regulations and identifying areas in which the zoning can be changed offers opportunities to build multifamily housing. Introducing an improved transportation system will make these housing options truly affordable and available to families and individuals. Many other suburbs across the country have begun taking actions to introduce mixed income communities. Henrietta needs to join in this effort. Residential segregation is a large problem within Monroe County, and solving it is crucial to Henrietta's growth and the growth of the county as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to add a couple things on that. Henrietta did introduce incentive zoning. We do have one of those incentives is for affordable housing. In looking at it after receiving your paper and looking through it, as I responded in the email, it does appear that there was a copy and paste error. So when we first talked about it for affordable housing, it was for the rural residential district, which is south of the thruway. It does not have much in the way of infrastructure and especially road infrastructure. So the uses there tend to be ones that put less traffic on the road, which when you're looking at multifamily, senior housing tends to put less traffic on the road during peak travel times than other housing. So in there, the incentive was for affordable senior housing. We then talked about our revitalization zones, which are looking at exactly as you talked about I refer to them as tired retail. So these older portions of the town where some of the, like the mall, Southtown Plaza, these areas where they're not fully occupied, they're not well utilized, that there could be affordable housing there. That area does allow, it's called market rate is what they usually refer to as open housing. But when we brought over the incentive zoning into that zone, the senior was still there. So that's something that we as a board should look at is strike the word senior. So we already have those incentives in place. We just need to fix it for those zones. That stuff is already there. I've been talking with Rachel Sherman, who's someone on the school board. This is a big issue for her. In fact, I put you in touch with her in response to the email if you want to talk more about it, because she follows this a lot. She commented that Henrietta is actually ahead of a lot of the other towns because we have there was less historical redlining and stuff like that in Henrietta. But she also talks about stuff you can do. One of the issues you run into, so one of the things a lot of proponents for this they refer to it as exclusionary zoning. What they want to see is smaller lots, shorter setbacks. And the reason for that is it decreases the per lot cost for construction, and therefore, in theory, can lead to more affordable homes. The problem with that is that if you don't tie it to some sort of incentive, what typically happens is builders will still build the higher end homes because they can make more money. They'll just do it on a smaller lot with less yard, and therefore they'll pocket the extra profit. So one of the challenges we have, and I've reached out to Rachel and the Association of Towns to see if someone has good definitions for that, is what is a good definition for affordable housing? What does that mean? Because in fact, a few of us were talking about it today. Lisa Bolzner is a real estate agent, is just, talks about how the pricing of housing has gone through the roof. And so, what is affordable today? That's something we have to look at a definition, because I wouldn't want to allow that decreased lots and the reduced setbacks, thus lowering the cost, unless the developers are going to somehow put that into building more affordable housing, right? I'm not interested in doing that just to pad their pockets, because it does result in neighborhoods that have less green space. And that's one of the things that there's a lot of people who feel that Henrietta is overdeveloped as it is today. So everything is a balancing act, but that is something we'd like to look at. And one of the things that I would love to see people encourage Albany. Albany talks about this problem, and they often take a heavy-handed approach where they put these mandates on the towns, and I'll use auxiliary dwelling units, for example. The governor and a couple members of the legislature had proposed this idea that every house could add an auxiliary dwelling unit. Well, I can tell you, for instance, we're doing work right now on some of the older neighborhoods in town. There is no way that their sewer system could take double the flow if every house added an auxiliary dwelling unit. It just wouldn't happen. You'd have all kinds of problems. So it's essential that what's called home rule, that towns be able to figure out where those can go. But at the same time, there does need to be some oversight, because, to be perfectly blunt, not all towns, there is some of that exclusionary practice. So they will look at and pick maybe the least attractive areas, stuff like that. So there is some oversight that needs to be done. But one of the other things that really is driving home prices up, and what leads developers to have to build larger homes, is today the cost to build the roads, the cost to put in the sewers, the storm sewers, the water, the electric, all the utilities, that all falls on the builders. And before you've even built your house, you end up with this high per lot cost. And especially in a well-developed town like Henrietta, we look at things like, we just okayed a development near here that's at the end of two streets. It was always intended to be there, but the one street doesn't have sidewalks, and the additional traffic down there could create potential hazards for the kids walking on that street. So we put the burden of that developer to put in sidewalks, which is great for all the people living on the street. But that, of course, adds some to the per lot cost. Now, we just happen to have that developer in, and I mentioned this. He said, well, that's not really, those obviously add some, but the biggest problem with the per lot cost today is the supply chain issues. The cost for all that infrastructure has gone through the roof. So I just bring up Albany because if they really want to do something, rather than these heavy-handed, unfunded mandates, perhaps they ought to put together a fund that could go, if somebody comes in and qualifies for building affordable housing, however they define that, they could provide money to the town that the town could put in the roads and or the sewers. And I say to go to the towns because, as we've seen from so many government programs, if you go straight out to the businesses, it opens the door for corruption. One just only has to look at the payroll protection program and how widely that was abused during the pandemic to see why you've got to have good oversight. But you know, if you can lower that per lot cost for these new houses, but again, tie that to the developer building more affordable, lower entry homes, you know? There's a lot of things that go into this, and I'm glad to see that there's students like yourself as well as people from across the community who are taking an interest in this. And because I will say it is a challenge today, if you're starting out a family, to try to find a starter home that you can afford. It's really tough. We bought a little old house that was we bought it for my father-in-law, so it's at the other end, an empty nester. But it was assessed at 130,000. It was listed at 170,000. It sold for 180,000. And that's for a little tiny ranch, 1 bathroom, not much. So it really is getting difficult. And oh, by the way, nobody builds those houses anymore. So you're stuck buying, you know, what happens to come on the market. So it's really tough. And the one last comment I'll make as far as the transportation, Henrietta doesn't have buses. We use RTS, regional, or the transportation system. So unfortunately, they did decrease service to Henrietta back in, I think it was 2018, 2019. And that's unfortunate. We pushed back on that, but it didn't have a whole lot of effect. We just had a discussion with someone from RTS today because there's going to be a new T-Mobile call center in town. They're looking at 1,000 jobs, and they would like to be on a bus stop because they would like people from, you know, all over who may not have access to the vehicles and need the mass transit to get there. They'd like them to be able to get to that job. So we are looking at that. Unfortunately, we don't have any control over that other than asking, begging, pleading. So I don't know if you have any questions, comments, or follow-up.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, well, thank you again. And again, applaud you on doing your capstone on this project. And like I said, if you ever want to follow up, you've got my email. Don't hesitate. Next up, we have special use permit application number 2022-048. Roger Michael Douglas, 112 Armbruster Road, to have up to 50 pigeons at one time as pets. We put you on first this time, so you don't have to sit through the long thing. So
I got the picture. I found something similar, like
Okay.
you were asking for.
that'd be great.
So can I bring up?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Nice. Can I keep this? Because Becky, I'll bring it in and we can scan it in. I'll pass it to the other board members, but we can scan it in later. It just gives some examples of what the final, we'll call it the final product is, because if you'll recall, when he found out that he needed a special use permit, he stopped all current construction to get legal before he started to do it. So thank you for the visit. It was, it was interesting looking at it. Went through, as I mentioned, we pulled in on a resolution, we pulled in the stuff that I had brought down from the American Racing Pigeon Union. That's what it's called. Look like you meet all of those, or if not, you'll be close. You will when you're done with the construction.
Absolutely.
So our thought was we would just place that, as a condition of essentially building to those standards. In looking at the numbers 50, we had a discussion and thought that we would set the limit at 40 adults and up to 50 total, including adults and adolescents.
Okay.
Just looking at the numbers in the pack, and that way, it allows you to have some adolescents coming along to replenish the stock, so to speak, because
Yeah.
I know not all the birds make it home. So, but I don't have a whole lot of new questions that haven't already answered. And I think most of the board feels that way too, but I'll let them chime in if anybody has any additional questions or
No,
comments.
I agree.
What's up?
Asked multiple questions. Appreciate your patience in this.
Yep.
Oh, no problem. Appreciate your guys' patience.
Well, it's definitely been an interesting education. I now know more about racing pigeons than I ever would have thought I'd know. So, is there anybody from the audience who wishes to make a comment regarding this special use permit? Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-048, Roger Michael Douglas, 112 Armbruster Road, to have up to 50 pigeons at one time as pets. So Becky, was the understanding that we're going to read that resolution now or later on in the list, or is that up to us?
That's up to you.
I would be good with doing it now. It doesn't look like it has someone assigned to it, so
Want to go ahead and
I'll make the motion. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-70-2023 to approve special use permit application number 2022-048 to allow a pigeon loft housing up to 50 pigeons at 112 Armbruster Road.
second.
So I already talked to you about the two conditions, the 40 adults or 50 birds total, and that the loft be designed, built, and operated to the general criteria of the loft certification policy established by the American Racing Pigeon Union. Any other questions or comments? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations, and look forward to send us a picture when it's all done.
I will.
Thank you.
And the variance went through too, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. Great.
Congratulations.
All
And
right.
thank you
Thanks.
for educating us so well.
Yeah.
Had no idea what was involved.
Get a picture up there for you guys.
There we go. A little pigeon over the top.
Have a good-
You too. Just for the record, for the minutes, since he had moved away from the mic, he had offered to put a pigeon up in the picture in the mural over the back of the meeting room. So next up, we have public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-001 Rivian LLC, 65 Becker Road, to operate a Rivian electric vehicle auto service facility and specialty motor vehicle sales location. This application was postponed because there was a poor wording on the application. It said no sales or showroom present. It was supposed to be no sales showroom present. They were going to have sales activities as defined by New York State. So originally this did not when the notification went out, it did not have the specialty motor vehicles sales location as listed on there. And so the town board decided that that wasn't fair if somebody, that it was essentially advertising properly. We did correct it on the web as of Friday, but again, the mailing did not go out and or to the newspaper with the proper heading. So we will actually hold this public hearing at the next meeting on the 22nd. However, if there is anybody who wishes to speak with regards to this special use permit application, you may come up now. It'll be entered into the record and we will take it into account when we make a determination on this project. there anyone who wishes to speak regarding the Rivian project? Then hearing none, we are going to hold the public hearing open because we'll essentially reconvene at the next meeting on the 22nd. Next up, we have the public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-002 Shake Shack by 911 Jefferson Road LLC. 245 Clay Road, also known as 911 Jefferson Road, to demolish the former Denny's restaurant and construct and operate a new restaurant with sit-down and take-out meal service, outdoor seating, and a drive-through. I can see we have representatives from Shake Shack here, so if you could introduce yourself and your relationship to the project, that would be appreciated.
Sure. Good evening. Evan Gaffel with Costage Engineering. And then we have the development team from 911 LLC.
Why don't you give us an overview of the project?
So the project location, 245 Clay Road, is the existing Denny's. The project involves removing the Denny's and constructing a 3,500 square foot restaurant to replace it with sit-down, takeout, drive-through, and outdoor seating. We worked through this project. It's on the corner. We're lucky with this site that we could put the drive-through to the rear of the property. It kind of lends itself to a nice layout and addresses Jefferson Road. I guess ours, it's industrial, the industrial district. Hours operation are 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that's kind of a quick overview. They're new to the area.
Do you think they'll ever have late night hours?
I don't believe so, not past because of that, where we are located.
Right. Okay.
One other thing that we looked at, the plaza, the lands adjacent to it are becoming developed. And the developer is currently working for the cross access easement to kind of make that whole area connected.
Yeah, that'd be great. I see you have the two potential connection points there. So
Right.
I would think just looking at the general flow of where the other businesses are, the one that runs parallel to Jefferson to me is the more critical
Sure.
feed through if you were only putting in one, but
Yeah, there was also an issue from the fire marshal that we needed a second means of egress.
Yep.
So
So,
that'll answer that
yes.
concern as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be better for that one for the fire as well, because they typically like to have them further separated.
Right.
Because the one to the south, the entrance is, if it's too close to the same entrance off of the road, if there's an accident there, potentially both entrances get blocked. So.
Correct. Right.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
Doesn't look, as far as parking, I think it would be advantageous to go into the plaza because there's not a ton of parking there for people that are going in. As I'm looking at the parking around the facility.
Yeah, I will note that it is both a smaller footprint than the
Right.
former Denny's, and it's also a faster service than the former Denny's and certainly the former Perkins if you go far enough back.
Right, which was completely sit down, and this is
Right.
mostly drive through.
Are there other Shake Shacks? Do we already have other ones here in the area? You'll be the first
Yep.
one. Because I know my son lived in DC and I know they were down there.
Sure.
But,
Yep.
Interesting.
This is one of the first in essentially west of central New York, right?
Right.
Yeah, so for those who are unaware, they're big in New York City, along the East Coast,
Right.
the I-95 corridor. But this is the first that's really coming out into, call it upstate New York, although they probably have some upstate locations that New York City considers upstate that we all consider downstate.
Right.
you might consider with the neighbors plaza that you might be able to get away with a gated or crash gate that'll only be used in in case of an emergency.
Sure, if it comes down to that,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, I suspect in talking with the plaza owner, I think that they'll be able to put up a full access because again, if someone's shopping at the plaza, they don't want to have to go out to Clay Road,
Right.
make a left onto Clay, make a left into this plaza. They'd much rather stay through the plaza. So it's beneficial to both entities. It's just one of those, they're not in place yet. So.
Yep, we'll get there.
How much seating are you anticipating inside? Approximately.
That's. Don't know the exact number
That's fine.
since kind of concept level.
Right, right.
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere.
It should be on there somewhere because that determines the amount of parking spaces required.
Will that be going to site plan,
Yes,
planning board?
yeah.
Okay,
The site, they're the ones who ensure that there's sufficient parking. And or again, if they don't have sufficient parking in their lot, then they would have a cross parking agreement with the adjacent plaza.
no, well, yeah, I'm actually not overly concerned
Right.
from what I'm seeing that there's sufficient parking.
I don't see any numbers on here.
No,
That, I do believe, so there, let me double check that
It's an outside patio.
it does have,
yep,
it does have outdoor seating on there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure it was checked on the special use permit.
Mhm.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
So the
is.
outdoor seating is gonna be over, trying to see where the drive-through is.
It's in the up northwest
Up,
corner.
Right,
Yeah.
see that there. I'm trying to see would go by it with the drive-through.
So one of the things we like to see is either bollards or a, masonry fence or something that it's in a good location that there's no one really coming towards it from a traffic standpoint. But we like to make sure that an errant driver can't just accidentally plow through tables of people sitting down. So
It does say perimeter fencing.
good. Any other questions from the town board?
Approximately how many employees do you think you'll be?
It's usually 6.
Okay.
right on there.
Mostly like young people, high school students
Mhm.
kind of thing?
I think
Right.
today's anybody.
Yeah.
Well, and that's 6 at any one time. Obviously, you have a bigger staff, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the town board before I open it up to the public?
No,
Okay, any questions, comments from the public? Coming up, if you could just move us to the side. So he can ask a question.
Oh, sorry.
Just introduce yourself and whether you're a resident of Henrietta.
My name is Cyrus Bell. I am not a representative of Henrietta. I wanted to ask a question about this Shake.
Sure, just go ahead and ask a question and then he can come back up. Or actually, sir, if you could sit at want to sit at the table, there's a microphone there that you could answer questions. Go ahead.
So you're selling milkshakes or something?
Yeah, it's shakes and burgers. It's just a different not new, but it's just.
Becky, are you able to, are you able to hear him on the microphone? Yep, okay. Just want to make sure.
So the product is different shakes, smoothies and burgers. They have their own brand. It'd be like a Wendy's or something like that, but it's supposed to be a little healthier.
Out there, so what are these prices? You haven't determined that yet?
I don't work. I'm not.
He's in engineering working on the site plan, not,
Uh-huh.
but if you just go search Shake Shack, you'll find them online and
I have never heard of this place. Is this a
Yeah.
new thing?
This is new to the area.
New to the area?
Yeah.
so like I said, it's been along the East Coast for quite some time. I don't know when they started, but I've seen it in New York City on many previous trips. So,
Okay. I was just wondering because I've never.
and I
heard of
will
such a
say
thing.
in New York City, it is mobbed.
The one in
Oh.
DC that was near my son's place was mobbed too.
Yeah.
Great milkshakes.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it is very popular. There's one up near the theater district, and you pretty much need a reservation for a fast food joint.
And they
I
don't
kid you
take
not.
reservations, but.
I know, but I'm saying, like, if you don't get there well ahead of the time you need to get served, because you're gonna wait in a long line. They are very popular. So
Be interesting.
I do know our library staff wholly supports this resolution and will be mad at us if we were to deny it, because they love Shake Shack. So,
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's all I have right
Great.
now.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? And if you're behind this sign, stand up. Anybody online? And hearing no further questions or comments, I'm going to close the special the public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-002 Shake Shack by 911 Jefferson Road LLC. Someone wish to put forth the resolution? Again, we have this one pre-written.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion. Let's see. For resolution 3-71 2023 to issue a negative declaration and approve special use permit application number 2023-002 for Shake Shack by 911 Jefferson Road LLC for a new restaurant at 245 Clay Road.
Seconded.
Any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Thank you very much. Tell them
Thank you.
congratulations. And like I said, our library staff is very much looking forward to them coming in.
Be your first customers.
That's right. Next up, we have public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-003, Michael and Tammy Jobson, 76 Sedgley Park, to have 4 dogs. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about.
Evening. Can you hear me all right?
We
I
can.
apologize. I got a bad head cold. and
No problem.
so
We
forth.
appreciate you looking out for others.
All right. Me and my wife been a Henrietta member or lived in Henrietta since 2013. We currently have 4 dogs in our household. In 2014, we started registering our dogs with the town of Henrietta as per requested by town code. During that time, as we progressed and got our dogs, we did not know the town had a limitation on how many dogs. And when we registered our 4th dog, we never got any pushback. We never were advised by the town clerk or anybody there for licensing that we could not have a 4th dog. I have our record here that shows that when we started registering the dogs, 2014 for Roxy and Ripley, which were the 2 that we already had. Then Willow in 2015, who is my Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and I use for hunting with my son. And then another dog, Raven, as our eldest Boston Terrier has gotten older, we wanted another pet. Being both our kids are out of the house, and we didn't have any grandkids. They're our family. They're our
Your
babies.
grandpuppies.
Yeah, they're our babies. I'm sorry, I love my kids, but I'd rather have dogs. So being said, my dogs they're confined. They're all small. Other than the Chessie, she's 60 pounds, but they're all confined in an invisible fence. They all have their collars. They're all well mannered other than barking. And I'm just asking to be able to keep my dog. I took my 13-year-old dog to the vet today. She has her liver's deteriorating and she's going to be passing soon. And it's hard on me and my wife just to understand that and accept it. So, it's just something that's going to happen in life, but the dogs keep us living. It makes our life fun. Now that we have grandkids, they love the dogs. So I'm just asking for your guys' support. It's a one-off. Once my other dog is dead, I don't want to have another dog because it's going to be hard because the eldest, Roxy, I have a very strong bond with her. We did a lot of agility, a lot of fly ball, a lot of stuff together. So, when she passes, I don't want to have another dog. And it's bad enough. I have a hunting dog and she's 8 years old now. So it's just her longevity is going to be 5 more years too.
So I will note that we did receive feedback from your neighbors. They all spoke highly of your dogs and your care of your dogs. They did express a concern that they didn't want the special use permit to carry on in perpetuity in the event that whoever comes in next gets 4 bad dogs or don't take care of their dogs. So we discussed ways to write this special use permit such that it expires basically when one or more of the current 4 dogs is no longer residing at the property. So
I support that. My neighbors are really nice. They have a dog and, then they have kids. So I have not had any issues per se, other than barking.
I will say it's enjoyable when we hear neighbors talking nicely of each other, because far too often we hear my neighbor's a pain and they do, so it's nice to hear good neighbors instead of only just the bad. So any questions, comments from the town board?
No.
No.
Any questions, comments from the public? Anything online? Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-003, Michael and Tammy Jobson. Fellow board members, I motion to approve special use permit application number 2023-003, Michael and Tammy Jobson, 76 Sedgley Park, to permit up to 4 dogs on the property, with the condition that the special use permit shall expire and terminate should one or more of the 4 dogs currently residing at the property at the time of issuance of the special use permit no longer continue to reside at the subject property.
Second.
So as you can see, we don't like to talk about dogs passing away. You'll note that anytime you're bringing a dog in for licensing, you're always happy. Bring the dog. We're all dog lovers here.
Absolutely.
And I will note, by the way, that the requirement to license a dog is actually a state requirement, not a town requirement. We're just the ones who
Are enforcing
doing or doing the licensing. Otherwise, you would have to go, at the county or somewhere else. Yeah. So
that's fine. I got a notice that said final notice,
Right.
and I'm just like, really?
yeah.
Where's my initial notice?
I do know that they mention it because I've seen them do it. The clerks typically mention it as kind of a nice mention, and maybe they didn't drive home the point hard because they try to be, as I call it, friendly reminder. So
Well, they didn't even mention it to her this past year
Sure.
when she registered, and
Okay.
she's the one that registered them.
okay,
So
Sounds
there's a
good.
point.
sure,
I appreciate it.
you bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we didn't
Oh,
vote.
yep. So, any further comment?
No.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-004, Take 5 Oil Change, Highland Drive, will be known as 1300 Highland Drive, to construct and operate a motor vehicle service facility. We have a representative present.
Evan Gaffel with Costage Engineering, representing Quattro, who's the developer for the Take 5 oil change. I believe Peter Davick is. Let's see.
Yep, I'm online here.
So brief overview, this will be known as 1300 Highland Drive. It is the former parking lot of the Circuit City. Take 5 oil change is also new to the area. It's consists of a 1,600 square foot building, 3 bays for oil change services. It takes the way it operates is that it's just like a sort of a Jiffy Lube. The customer comes in, stays in the vehicle, and it takes on average 9 to 10 minutes. Right. Yep. To complete what they need to do, 15 minutes. And the only things that they offer here are oil, change, wiper, filters, and that's about it. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 7 to 7, Saturdays, 8 to 7, and on Sundays, 9 to 5. We also have filed 2 access easements, one to the north to J. Scotty Boulevard or Plaza, and one to the south in front of the storage building. There's a 30-foot access easement to Marketplace Drive. And I think that's an overview.
Okay, questions? So, I mean, obviously, as I was discussing with the real estate attorney this morning, this would basically effectively lock in the former Circuit City to being a use like it currently is with the self-storage. He pointed out that they made that choice when they opted to buy that parcel, but not develop the parking lot. So because it's essentially going to reduce the available parking for that use, it limits what uses could actually ever go there. But it sounds like they're okay with that. But I just wanted to make sure that's clear, because I don't want them then coming back later and saying, oh, well, you know, we want to put a restaurant in there. Sorry.
So this is like a drive-through oil change kind of thing? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yep.
Okay.
So go sideways. We'll line up in 1 to 3 days.
Could you speak in front of the microphone so it gets picked
Sorry.
up by the recording? I realize it's awkward.
Yeah.
No problem. So they'll line up here and then they'll be told to pull forward.
Okay.
There's pits that the mechanics are in below. You stay in your vehicle. They do what you have to do, take payment, and they're off.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
We receive trip generations from Take 5. So the highest is 50 cars per day. So we consider that pretty low traffic generator, which is kind of great for this spot. You know, and they've been in the business. They have 700 locations across the US.
And they operate in the winter?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only access to the facility is going to be to go in through this little the gas station that's here. You're going to go around it and then in front of where the storage is and then come in. So you have no direct.
The entrance is actually right between the gas station and the storage.
Right. Well, that's what,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's there's no direct access from
Correct.
Highland Drive.
And that
Cut through
was,
Yeah.
that was looked at and determined while we were doing the self-storage
Okay.
as part of that subdivision. And that's why that access easement is in place already.
Okay.
So as far as signage goes, how are you going to get people in there? Is there going to be, and I know this is a zoning question, but is there going to be like signage out on Marketplace Drive? Do you know?
I don't know at this
Okay,
point
I'm just
with this
curious. I know
concept,
you'll
but
have a
we will need to.
a
And I-
site from
Yeah,
Highland,
yeah.
but-
I brought that same question up to Kevin and also asked him, like, one of the things I would like to see, I'm not going to require it because I didn't get an answer back from him as to whether it would require an additional fee. But for people coming through the other way who normally cut through, I'd like a sign that said, essentially directed them to make that first hard left that said exit to Marketplace Drive, just a little sign, because I'm
Yeah.
afraid otherwise people are going to go past there because that's what they used to do. And then they'll get, and you'd think that the building would give them a hint that they can't go that way anymore, but let's just say I don't have a lot of faith in the modern driver. And so I'd love to see just something that indicates that they have to take that first hard left. Again, that's just something to pass back to the developers. If the planning board decides to put that on the site plan, that's up to them, but I'm not putting that as part of the special use permit. I just want to mention it.
Okay.
But I also agree with Councilmember Bolsner's comment is they should look at how can they make sure people know where to pull in to get there, because there isn't a direct access.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you can come across in front of Lazy Boy down in the other plaza and kind of come around, but it is a narrow definition between the building and where you
Right.
can come around. So I'd much rather see the signage directing them down Marketplace Drive.
And so the plan would be is they'd come in off of Marketplace Drive and then exit through the other plaza there?
They could, or if you'll notice in the
They can go
north
around.
bay, they could circle back around.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the southern bay, that's kind of why they have it,
Mm-hmm.
that green island. And I will note this actually adds greenery, not a ton, but it is at least more green than is currently there. So
Right, and
that's something we always like to see from a plan, is to add more greenery. And I think, you've got as much as can reasonably be put in there without
Right.
putting a hindrance on the facility. So.
and that parking lot is in bad shape, so it really
It
needs
needs a
something.
facelift,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Any other comments from the town board? Any comments from the public? Any comments or questions online? And hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-004, Take 5 oil change. Someone wish to put forth a motion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to put forth resolution number 3-72/2023 to issue a negative declaration and approve the special use permit application number 2023-004, Take 5 oil change at 1300 Highland Drive.
Seconded.
Any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Hi.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to slight apology. I had way too much iced tea, so I need to take a bio break. I'll be right back before we start on the East Henrietta Apartments. But if the applicant has anything they need to set up and wants to get set up, they're welcome to do so. Be right back.
Here. Are they online?
Possibly online.
You've been here every other time.
Mm-hmm.
If you need help, Craig, could you turn the portable on for? Thank you for your patience. So next up, we have public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-051, East Henrietta Apartments by AR Building Company, 2160 East Henrietta Road, to construct 2 4-story apartment buildings for a total of 102 units. Please introduce yourself. And
hi, my name is Jason Kambitsis. I'm the president of AR Development Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is kind of a continuation of the meeting we had last month. A couple of things. We actually responded to the comments. They're in there. I want to bring up 2 issues. One is there was a back and forth between us and a neighboring property owner about an easement. So just so everybody knows, and this is it's on current. There is a recorded easement on our property. Okay. It is an unsigned easement. So what happens is the neighbor behind it, although somebody recorded an easement, has not been signed. So we're not guaranteed that easement. I just want everybody to understand that. And I don't want the property owner to think that somehow, we have rights over the land. Where we're from, and frankly, every other state we've been to, never seen an easement being recorded that's unsigned.
Yeah.
So it was an odd situation.
so just to be clear, the map showing the easement is what was recorded.
Yes,
We could not find an actual recording of
Yep.
the easement agreement itself.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't want, for us, we've never
You're
seen
standing in
anything.
front of
Sorry,
the camera.
we've never seen anything like that before.
Okay.
So for us, we see that as it was something different. Now, in response to that, our engineers on here, Brad, and you can talk about this, but we're looking at going out to the street. So it's a question of, hey, we could go to the back. The difference is it falls to the back or it pumps to the street. So it's not as though that changes our ability to do the project. It's just an engineering question. It's something that we can overcome. I also think it's interesting tonight. There was a conversation about affordable housing and all that kind of stuff, and people got into costs and everything. Now, we are not proposing an affordable development in the standard sense of that. There is no incentive being given to us. There is no restriction put on the property. That being said, I think we can all understand abundance or lack of resources causes prices to go up, as we've seen in this time. Inflation may be clearing up, but at the end of the day, if you got 10 people and they all want a banana, you got one banana, that banana is going to cost more than if you had 10 or 20 bananas. Okay. In the simplest terms. The price for housing goes down when there's more housing. The ability for people to move in a community changes. And frankly, housing creates progress in the communities that we've worked in and continue to work in. A lot of people say, well, there's no new housing for us. It stops a community. You can go to a lot of places that restrict development. Nobody would move in. The community that's built around this property, if somebody restricted that development, nobody would have been able to move into those homes. Now, I know we've talked about this last time, but I just want everybody to think about that. Somebody spoke up against the homes that were built next door, you wouldn't have had that home. So I really just want to get to the point of it is that communities are a growing process. They are ever evolving. When we think about coming to this meeting, this is a meeting to talk about, are we doing what's correct based upon the zoning code? And the zoning code states that we're allowed to have this use. I mean, it does state that. Now you have to go through this process, which we are right now. A way to deal with that is showing up to comprehensive planning meetings and doing all that stuff. I only say these things because I was a former planner. I did this work for years. And so I'm not belittling anybody's viewpoint. I get it. I'm a homeowner, a property owner, all those things. But it is part of the movement of a community is people build new things. Things do change over time. But I did want to say that, and also We have the responses back to the community. Those responses have been highlighted there. We can go over them or any specific questions. We're here to answer them. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, so just a couple comments on that. In New York State, there's actually two things. There's the seeker, which is State Environmental Quality Review. And as lead agents, part of our responsibility for that is to identify potentially adverse conditions. And again, that's a large part of why we hold these public hearings. A number of residents brought forth very legitimate, potentially adverse conditions. And then it's your responsibility as a developer to put forth a means by which those can be remediated. And then it's essentially up to determine at the end of the day, if all of them have been remediated, then you get what's typically called a negative declaration, which means there are no remaining issues. Or you get a positive declaration, which means there are remaining issues, and then it goes into this long potential process. So one of the things looking at that, because you don't currently have a signed easement, and we haven't seen any plans or remediation that says we're going to carry the stormwater up to the street. I'm not sure what you're doing with the sewage. I'm not clear. I could not find a recorded or executed and recorded easement. Again, it's on the map. It's labeled as proposed for the sanitary either, but that may or may not be there. But the point being, we can't do what's called a conditional seeker that says this is okay as long as this happens. We need to see that there is remediation. Is that correct, Don? Yeah. So I don't know that we can rule on this today, or else if we do, I don't see how we can issue a negative deck, which basically means you would have to go through I forgot what it's called, the positive deck, which leads to an environmental impact statement. So that's the other option. Is we can give you time to get that resolved and put forth a proposed solution to getting the drainage and sewage off. But until we see a proposed, there's no way we can, that I see that and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think the other board members would agree. There's no way I could approve this without seeing a way to get that stormwater into the storm system.
I'll refer to my engineer, Brad, if he has anything to add to that, who's on the call right now.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Brad Simmons from CEC. I guess, my understanding of the process was that the stormwater didn't have to be completely evaluated and have, supporting documents to prove so. But as Jason mentioned, we're evaluating situations where we can reach the storm sewer along East Henrietta Road. So it's available. It's just determining the best route to get there.
Right. So again, because that doesn't exist today, I can't say, well, we'll approve this on the condition that you do that. That's not allowed in seeker. In special use permit it is, but in seeker it's not. And stormwater is absolutely one of the things. In terms of going back to your other point that you had made earlier, again, if you'd had that easement, then it's pretty straightforward. You're going to bring that storm, you're going to build in the retention pond. You already had it on your plans. You already talked about the pipe going out through that easement. That addresses the issue if that easement was executed, because it was never executed unless you can either get the current resident to execute it, or unless you can put in a proposed system to pump it up to the stormwater up on 15A. Until we see a solution that mitigates the stormwater runoff issue, I just don't see, like I said, how we could do anything other than a pause deck, which, like I said, is basically means we then cannot act on we cannot approve the special use permit if it doesn't have a negative declaration or it's completed the environmental impact study successfully.
Do you mind if I ask a couple questions regarding that?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Don't
Just
necessarily answer them all, but I'll do my best.
understood. Just kind of curious, to what extent do we need to prove that the access to East Henrietta is feasible?
Yeah, so if you didn't hear our town attorney, it was to the town's engineer's satisfaction.
Understood. And then in kind of referencing the two commercial developments that were proposed this evening, what would be the difference between our development and their development where they didn't show any type of stormwater management?
Because those ones were already fully built out. They've actually already got the stormwater present. Their existing parking lots and existing buildings. You're taking green space today and turning it into impervious surface. In fact, for all the ones we approved today, there's actually less impervious surface than under the current conditions. So that's essentially a huge difference. If this were an existing apartment complex with apartments there and the water was already handled, it'd be a different story, but that's not the case. This is an open field and you're converting it to impervious surfaces. So that's part of the environmental quality review process. It's dictated by the state. We have to follow it.
Understood.
I haven't had a chance to fully review all of your responses. I would have spent a bunch of time last night getting through it if we'd had this issue resolved, because it's not, it's on my plan in the next 2 days to get back to you in case there's anything missing. So I can't say that you've satisfied all I think it was 17 issues we brought up. I did see the renderings. Those look good. Although I jokingly said 15A isn't accurate because you didn't have any potholes in your model. So like I said, I will get back to you. One of the things that, and I'm going to ask the town clerk this question, how much advance notice do they need for us to advertise the continuation of this public hearing?
Well, the legal notice required is 5 days, but obviously we need a head start ahead of that because of the newspaper. So I'd say that
Wednesday before the meeting?
Wednesday before the meeting should be fine. Wait, Wednesday before the meeting.
So essentially 1 week prior to the meeting? Although the next meeting has a holiday in it, I don't know if that affects.
Yeah, I'd have to double check to see about if they publish on President's Day and that affects us, but let's see, the meeting's the 22nd. Yeah, I'd almost say the Monday before that's Monday the 13th. Because we want to publish on the 16th.
So I don't know, do you think you're going to have a solution ready for the 22nd, or do you think you're going to need to push into the March meeting?
We should have it ready, but I refer to Brad. We were supposed to have it ready by now, but I refer to Brad.
Yeah, no, we could absolutely have a solution by then.
Okay. So then we will hold this public hearing open until the 22nd, although again, I'm going to invite anybody who wishes to speak regarding this application in a minute. You'll have that opportunity. Like I said, we'll have this going and I'll get back to you, like I said, in the next day or two, my review of the responses you provided with regards to.
Great, I appreciate that.
17 points. It's both storm, like I said, I did not see a recorded sanitary easement. And when I say we have somebody who does that essentially for a living. He's phenomenal at it. He could not find anywhere in the recorded easements a page in LIBOR that correlated to that a recorded easement. Again, they're on the map. They're shown on the map as proposed. Unfortunately, whoever previously developed this site did not go through with the easements. They discussed them, but they never signed or paid. I suspect something else killed the project and they just let it fall. So any other questions on that? Any other comments from the town board?
Not at the moment.
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Come on up. Oh, yeah, just come on up to the microphone. I'm sorry. No problem.
Thank you, Tom.
I just wanted to ask you a question. Your apartment buildings will be 4 stories high. Will there be lights up on the top of the building shining down? I was thinking in terms of the cars coming in and out, but then I wondered if there would be lights on the buildings as well.
So to answer your question, all of our, and I don't know what the, I'm sure it's a requirement here. They're all dark sky compliant. So what that means is just like, how, you can have your kitchen light on, you see the light, that's what it is, but we can't shine off of the property. So there's no light.
Right. Yeah, that is, yeah. So typically, because they have a gabled roof, they're either typically under the eave. They're sometimes mounted in the eave, sometimes they're attached to the building, but they're shining down. And that, as he said, we do have a dark sky compliance requirement. Unfortunately, it wasn't always in place, as you can tell by some of the car dealerships. But basically, yeah, they would not be allowed to shine off of the property.
And frankly, we don't really like to put a lot of light on the building anyways, because if you live in one of the apartments, you get a light shining on you. Now, what happens is people have balconies and they have lights.
Yeah.
But we don't shine lights off the building.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, then hearing none, I'm going to close this session of the public hearing and we will reconvene on the 22nd, hopefully with a plan in place for how you are going to carry the storm and sanitary sewers into the system.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed local law to revise provisions of the Town of Henrietta Local Energy Code, including New York Stretch. So for those who've been paying attention, we put in place New York Stretch codes as recommended by NYSERDA. Unfortunately, NYSERDA and the Department of State did not talk to each other. And so after we put the law in place, Department of State said there are, I think it was 6 items that were not allowed, and there were 2 other items that needed clarification. So this local law makes those clear. We didn't actually have to put the clarification right into the town code, but we felt if the Department of State was asking that question, builders might ask that question. I'd rather have the answers right in the town code so there's no ambiguity. So any questions, comments on New York Stretch, modifications to New York Stretch? Anything online? And hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to revise provisions of the Town of Henrietta Local Energy Code, including New York Stretch. And finally, we have a public hearing for the proposed modification of extension 109 to Henrietta Water District number 1. So extension 109 was covering the development that was going to go in to the location that is currently the transportation center for Rush Henrietta Central School District. There was originally supposed to be 2, essentially a looped water main going through the property. It was going to be essentially like an office park. That main was going to come back along 3 properties. The 3 properties that we're marking for removing from 109. and was going to be able to provide them water service. Instead of building the office park, they put just a single structure there for the bus garage and, you know, the transportation center. And so it's a lateral and not a main. The loop was never put in. Basically, the water goes from the large main that's on Lehigh Station Road to the bus garage. And you'll actually see there's a couple hydrants there. They're red in color, which indicates they are private hydrants. If they were on the mains, they would be yellow hydrants. As such, the main that was supposed to go down Middle Road and service these three houses was never built. Nor were there ever any fees charged to this district because they never built it. So the reason we're modifying this district is because those three houses are still interested in getting water, and a future extension 172 could provide it to them, but only if they're in that district instead of 109. So because of the fact that the structure was never built and because there were never any charges, we're just going to diminish the district to remove the three properties shown in green, so that at a future meeting, we'll be able to add those to 172 and actually get them water service. So that's the whole purpose behind this. Any questions? Any comments or questions from the board, the public, or online? And then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed modification of extension number 109. And that concludes our public hearings. I've lost track. Fourth, fifth, I guess it's fourth. Can I get my fourth resolution?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-73/2023 to authorize bills payable and any associated contracts or agreements for January 26, 2023 through today, February 8th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? I will just note that this has the new wording as per our new policy. We've already started to put it in place, so. Hearing no further comments, please call the roll.
I hit video rather than audio. Apologies. Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-74/2023 to modify extension number 109 to the Henrietta Water District number 1.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-75/2023 to call for a public hearing for a proposed local law to amend the town code relative to setbacks for lot lines internal to shopping plazas.
Seconded.
So this change would basically we currently have always kind of operated this way with regards to internal lots that are completely Craig, I've lost the term. It's not landlocked now, it's out parcels. What we refer to as out parcels. So a lot of times a plaza they'll have the plaza itself, but there'll be an out parcel for a restaurant. And those parcels are typically drawn like tight to the building within 5 feet. So essentially every side is treated as a side setback. I'm always a fan of seeing, let's actually have the code state what we're doing. So this cleans that up and essentially codifies it. The one thing I wanted to have in there was protection. If there's two adjacent developers within the same plaza, I don't want one developer to be able to hurt the other developer by pushing their building up and kind of blocking off the frontage of a building. So whereas it reduces the requirements for the internal lot line setbacks, it still keeps the setbacks relative to the street, and it keeps the setbacks relative to the front of one building to any side of another building, actually the front or rear. It doesn't, the sides can stay close. In fact, a lot of times in these plazas, they have what are called zero lot lines, which basically mean the two buildings are actually connected through a firewall. This is just calling for the public hearing, but I wanted people to understand what the law is about. Any questions, comments? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-76, 2023 to authorize the supervisor to sign an engagement letter agreement with Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah LLP to provide legal services for energy performance contracts.
Second. So as many of you are aware, we're in the process of upgrading, basically buying back from the utility companies and then upgrading all of our street lights to LED. That will save us money both from an energy standpoint as well as from a utility rental standpoint. But it's a significant chunk of change. It's between $3 and $4 million. And it's a portion of energy law that is not often exercised. So out of an abundance of caution, we did search for a law firm who has done these before so that they can review the energy performance contract upon which this section of law is based, as well as third-party lease, because our plan is to, we hope to, rather than bond, which where current rates are with bonds, could add some significant expense. We'd prefer to do a lease to own, which typically are at lower rates because the lease is backed by the equipment itself. But we need the law firm to basically look into that, make sure that the documents we have from the utilities and from the energy performance contractor, as well as the third-party lease, are all the town is protected as much as possible in those agreements, and that they are all in full compliance with the energy performance contract portion of energy law. Any questions? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it on my end. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. For a minute, I thought you forgot who I was. Then I realized you hadn't heard Joe. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-77, 2023 to adopt the attached contract authorization policy.
Seconded.
So this just puts together a formal policy with regards to ensuring that, for larger contracts, they are independently approved by town board resolution, and the town board gets to see those contracts. For what I'll call the medium contracts, they're put on this general, we've been doing this general authorization one. It has the contracts attached to it, and those are typically, they're below the $10,000 limit where the town board has to approve the purchase, but under New York State law, the town board is still supposed to review all contracts and authorize. Now, according to Association of Towns, for the very small contracts, that can be done as part of the audit procedure. And so this just details, what categories each of the different activities fall into. So for instance, a multi-year contract essentially bumps up a category because it stretches out for more than a year. A single purchase sales agreement, for small dollar amount is the simplest. And the idea is that contract just has to be in the packet of bills, which is why, as I mentioned earlier, we changed the wording. It's not just to review the bills, it's also to review the contracts. So it can be done as part of that audit process. So this just formalizes that, because again, I'm not a fan of doing things on unwritten policies. I prefer to have them recorded so there's no confusion. Any questions, comments? If you'll notice, this is slightly different than what we had at workshop, and the reason is our finance director reviewed it and we had a long discussion, and there was some confusion as to the priority of the purchase authorization and the purchase policy, which is required by New York State. All the stuff that was in there and captured in there is actually in a couple different sources, but we just didn't feel we want to update our purchase policy, but that is not a simple process. And so we felt, since all the other stuff was authorized, the only thing that was missing was this contract authorization. We decided to peel the other half out, just leave the contract authorization so that there wouldn't be any confusion as to which takes effect. Because again, the purchase policy is actually it's mandated by New York State town law. So our plan is, before next year's organizational meeting, we'll have updated that purchase policy to incorporate the other aspects, as well as to actually we'll incorporate this contract authorization into that, so that there's just a single policy that covers everything. But we didn't want to rush that through. At the same time, we didn't want to go any further without having a written policy. So this, we felt, was the best of both worlds. It gets us the contract authorization policy that we've been missing, while not rushing through an update to a purchase policy. Does that make sense? Any further questions? Anything from the public or online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-78, 2023, to authorize the advertisement of bids for the new town court general trades package, contract D, HVAC package, contract E, electrical package, contract F, and plumbing and fire production package, contract G.
Second.
It's very exciting that stuff is moving along. We had a very successful sale of the surplus items that were in the old library. The old library is currently going through hazardous material remediation and removal. And then shortly, there'll be a couple other items that we have to get out of there, like the boilers and the step down transformer. And then after that, the building starts to come down. So you should start to see a lot of movement. That basically what we will be doing is we'll be fencing off that area. You'll still be able to come in through the main drive of Columbus Drive to get into the town hall campus. You just won't be able to veer off to the right like you used to go to the old library. Any questions?
These were all packaged in one resolution because they were just advertising contracts all at the same time.
Correct. We're just, yeah. So when we go to approve them, they will have to be separate resolutions to
Okay.
approve each individual, but just calling for the advertisement, that can just be a single resolution.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Anything from the public or online? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-79, 2023 to authorize the purchase of a stump grinder for the Buildings and Grounds Maintenance Department.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution number 3-80/2023 to authorize the purchase of 3 Toro zero-turn mowers for the Buildings and Grounds Maintenance Department and to surplus materials used as trade-in.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just had a question. The mowers that did we trade them in? Was the purchase price of this after the trade-in or we just surplus them? I never,
I believe that is the price, including the trade-in, but in order to trade them in, we have to surplus them. And we're only trading in 2 because we're keeping the best one as a spare. In the past, if one of our mowers was in maintenance, we were down a mower. So they're keeping the oldest one as a spare. Josh will keep it up and running. And that way, if any of our mowers are in maintenance, we'll have a spare to keep mowing.
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-81/2023 to set up a capital project for the new Henrietta Town Court project within the Capital Project Fund and transfer the 2022 ARPA interest revenue to the project.
Second. So just as it says, we're creating the capital project funds. That's where the money's paid out for the construction will come from. And because we're doing a bunch of this with the ARPA funds, they've been sitting in certificates of deposit. As you can imagine, with taxpayer dollars, we have to take very safe investment routes. Not the highest interest rates, but they're at least generating interest. And so we're going to be transferring that interest into this fund to help pay for the project. Obviously, the more it gets paid out of there, the less we have to pay out of general fund. So any other questions, comments on that? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-82/2023 to authorize and or ratify the following agreements executed between January 19th, 2023 and February 8th, 2023.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-83/2023 to make appropriate budget transfers and adjustments.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-84/2023 to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution 3-85/223 to adopt local law number 2 of 2023 to revise provisions of the town of Henrietta local energy code, including New York Stretch.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
All right. That concludes our resolutions. Do we have any additional discussion items or comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have any committee or miscellaneous reports?
So the Historical Site Committee met Monday night, and I know we've talked before, they're just all very, they're wonderful volunteers. And one of the things that we talked about is that they would like to come to the town board to propose to have the Chapman Corners made a historical park, so that they would have some say in what would happen to it. And, you know, there's so much, they feel that there's so much energy and time has gone into preserving that area that they would really like to have that dedicated as a historical. So they're probably going to be setting up to come in front of the town board to bring that up.
Okay,
And then as far as the library goes, the library is having a craft exchange on February 15th from 6 to 7:30. That's a Wednesday night. And whether or not you have brought stuff in to be exchanged, they still are saying to participate in it. And then on February 16th from 7 to 8, there's going to be a talk about the relationship between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, and you need to register for that. And that's all I have.
thank you.
Craft exchange. I love that idea.
I know, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
Others?
Yeah, first of all, the recreation center is reporting it's the busiest time of the year indoors. That is preschool programs, youth sports, gymnastics, and adult sports are keeping the staff very busy. And it's great to see that that space is being used to its capacity. There was a full house at a coffee and stargazing on Saturday evening, February 4th at Tinker Nature Park. Unfortunately, it was too cloudy for the stars, but they were able to view the full moon and enjoy coffee and snacks. A group from the Senior Center attended a performance of Ain't Misbehavin' at Jiva on Tuesday evening, February 7th, and had a great time. And a couple events coming up. Cupcakes and Cupid's Valentine's Day Dance is this Saturday evening, February 11th at the Rec Center, 6:30 to 8:30. Families will enjoy music, dancing, games, and cupcake decorating, and space is still available in this free family event. Register at henriettarec.org. And also there's going to be a gymnastics meet at the Rec Center on Saturday, February 18th and Sunday, February 19th. 6 teams and 203 gymnasts are registered to participate. The walking track will remain open to members during the meet. And I got a chance to attend the Youth Board Hall of Fame Selection Committee meeting on January 30th. After gathering input from a number of people, the committee then spent considerable time. I think they were there until about 11 o'clock at night. And they thought about narrowing a highly qualified pool of nominees down to the eventual 26 inductees. Those notifications for those are going to be sent out at the end of February, and we're all looking forward to a great ceremony on April 23rd.
Great. What else? The State of the Town luncheon has been scheduled for Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, starting at 11:30 a.m. with registration and networking, followed by 12 noon luncheon program. It's at the RIT Inn and Conference Center at 5257 West Henrietta Road. It's $25 per person. You RSVP to Karen Hode, that's KHOAD at Reliant CU. That's all one word, I guess you can call it, .com. Or you can call 585-314-9973. This is a program that the town's been doing with the Chamber of Commerce for many, many years. The funds go towards the scholarship, both the operation of the Chamber of Commerce, but predominantly towards the scholarship that they give out, or scholarships that they give out every year, the William J. Welsh Scholarship. So it's a worthy cause. Can't say the speaker's any good, but you know, it's me in case you didn't figure that out.
We'll give you extended time.
There you go. Yeah. So look forward to that. I'm happy to announce we finally got approval for the multimodal transportation grant. for work in the East River Road corridor to enhance the intersections and crosswalks as part of the sidewalk trail. To give you an idea of how fast New York State moves, we were first awarded the grant in 2018. And it took till now to get final approval to fund. Now, I will note that some of that was they had the wrong contact information. So for about a year and a half, it sat empty as they kept trying to contact me at the wrong email address. And of course,
You're not that hard to find.
I know. Frustratingly enough, the funds for the state aid to municipalities grant that's actually going to pay for the section of sidewalks that we have to build has still not been released. It took from 2018 through 2022, I think it was, to get DASNY to approve everything. But now it is unfortunately tied up apparently in politics because the sponsor of the original grant used to be the Senate Majority Leader. Since that was first approved, he is now the Senate Minority Leader, and the Senate Finance Committee does not seem to be releasing the funds. I've reached out to our current senator to see if he can get stuff done. I've reached out to our current assembly member to see if they can get stuff done. I'm very frustrated. If you talk to either of them, ask them, yeah, this is the part of politics I hate. I don't understand. And maybe it's not that, maybe it's just a snafu from the change in management. I don't know, but it just is so frustrating. The county's going to start building the thing. So basically what we did, because of all this long delay and because of the changes that the county's doing with regards to East River Road, our team, that it's myself, the deputy town supervisor, our highway commissioner, or excuse me, our highway superintendent, our DPW commissioner, and our director of engineering and planning, we've been working with the county that they're going to be the ones to actually build this. It's going to go out as part of their contract. It's going to help tremendously. The issue is we still don't have the funds released from 2018. Wow, it's ridiculous. So, but like I said, the good news is 500,000 of the 1.25 million has been released. And when it's all done, this is going to be from the southwest entrance to RIT at the north, all the way down to Lehigh Station in the south. And it's going to include improved intersections, crosswalks, and signalization, including the ability for, because as we know, a lot of the housing complexes are on the west side of East River Road. So anywhere there's a housing complex, an intersection, signalized intersection, there is going to be a crosswalk, signalized crosswalk, so that students and other residents or pedestrians can get from the west side to the east side safely. So it's a significant project. And again, it's being done at the same time as the large improvements to East River Road corridor. Hopefully we get the funds released soon.
I'll assume our town constable money's in the same situation.
No, the town constable money we actually have.
Oh,
The holdup in the town constable program isn't funding. It is that there aren't any cadets. Well, let me rephrase that. There are cadets going through the program today. In other words, there's no deputies to put on the job.
Gotcha.
They're hiring. The good news is, as people probably are aware, a lot of police departments have been trouble hiring new officers. Monroe County's Sheriff's Office does not seem to have that problem. They did have a full recruitment class. So assuming that the cadets all get through the program, we should have our constable. Now, again, that's really special attention detail, but internally we refer to it as a constable. For those unaware of this program, the town does not have a police force. It's very expensive to put on a police force, but there are certain things that we've always felt that we could use a town constable to do. We looked at the cost it would be to train, hire, supervise, ensure that constable, and it was through the roof. And so then we spoke with the Monroe County Sheriffs about the idea that they would hire, we would essentially pay them to hire an additional deputy who would be assigned to special attention detail for Henrietta alone. And that's an additive. So in other words, they can't assign that person and then take somebody and shift them out of Henrietta. The deputies who currently work in Henrietta aren't exclusively Henrietta, and they answer to the priorities of the sheriff's office, which are not necessarily the priorities that we as a town board might have. But as an example, someone just asked about, the issues of some of these fights at some of these locations. That's something that we could potentially have the special attention detail look at. Now, again, the press was asking me about it. We don't have a police force. I've not seen any of the investigation report, so I was not willing to comment to the press on it without knowing the details behind it. But there's a bunch of stuff like that, whether it's traffic violations in residential neighborhoods. Basically we get to set up and say, here's where we would want special attention paid. And then it's up to the Monroe County Sheriffs to assign that, either that individual, or it could be, they could potentially rotate a couple people through it if we need, especially if we wanted something covered at night. The thing we've talked about is that it would be somebody who is, in other words, for the most part, it would be the same individual or maybe two individuals, so that they get very familiar with the town and the town gets very familiar with them. We don't want it to be a revolving door.
If and when that man or woman is named and being liaison to the school district, I'd like to personally introduce him to the school personnel. And maybe in the future, we could split some of the costs for that as it continues.
That's right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a possibility if that makes sense.
Yep.
Is essentially a resource officer. Yeah.
Sitting at the crosswalks with one of the high priority.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're in the workshop, forgive me.
I'm sorry, I wanted to add in one of the high priority items for this attention detail was the crosswalks too. So not only just in the schools, but I know we have a hard time getting police officers to sit at a crosswalk when the crossing guards are there and cars are going through. We've had a lot of, remember George McAvenny had a lot of issues, and I'm sure they're continuing.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that they did do during the trial period, which they never actually charged us for. But it was good. It actually helped. George did say that it helped for a time being, after a while that the benefit wore off as people realized they're not there anymore, but. So.
That's good.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
No.
Any other announcements? And hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Oh, third.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.